Do you ever wish you could sell more and be more persuasive, have more referrals, be an influencer to others? Hey, if you are a salesperson, an entrepreneur, a business owner, you will not want to you will not want to miss today's special guest, Mr. Bob Burg. I'm so thrilled to have him on the show today. We're just going to show a quick clip of all that you've done. I know you've done a ton, but just a quick clip today.
When you combine excellence and consistency, you create truly great value. It's never about the numbers. The numbers are a result of caring about the people. When you sell on price, you're a commodity. When you sell on value, you're a resource. Every time you have a referral, what you've basically done is created the opportunity for more customers, more referrals, and more business building. See, many people, there's sort of a misnomer about selling. People think selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. That is not selling. That's called being a thief, okay? I define selling simply as discovering what the other person needs, wants, or desires, and helping them to get it. When you're selling, you're giving. How can I say that? What are you giving them? I suggest you're giving them time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and most of all, value. You know, it's often been said that success in business, success in life is based about 10% on technical skills and 90% on people skills. The single greatest people skill is a well-developed and authentic interest in the other person.
Good morning, Bob. It is so nice to have you.
Hey, Pam, it's so great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
I know it's odd how people meet and connect, and telling, just a brief story about, your book, The Go-Giver, and how I found out about it. And, I briefly told you that I was meeting with Barbara Corcoran for a business meeting up in her New York City office. And she said that I had to read the Go-Giver book. And that was probably about 6 years ago, and wanted to let you know how much that has changed my business. So I am just thrilled to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you. First, it's such a great honor to know that you have enjoyed the book and found it to be of value. And, really a great thrill to know that Barbara referred it. She's certainly someone who I hold in very, very high esteem and have so much admiration for. So you gave me a double bonus just now. Thank you so much.
I read that what you tried to publish it maybe 17 or 18 times. I'm always telling people, that they need to write a book, and what you tried to get it published that many times, and then finally, maybe the 19th or so, it was published, and then look where it is today. Have sold millions of copies, and then 28 different languages.
Yeah, it was more rejections than that, and yet, you look at something like Chicken Soup for the Soul by Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, and I think they were rejected 150 times or something. So it really doesn't matter how many times people say no, does it? It's really getting that yes, and it being the yes that counts. And it turned out the publishing partner that we found through our agents, and our agents did the work, and we so appreciate them. Turned out to be the perfect publishing partner, Portfolio Books, which is a division of Penguin Random House. So it happened when it was supposed to, and with the right people.
Yeah, that's great. And I didn't tell you this before, but we actually have a mutual friend with Zig Ziglar, being based here in Dallas, and I'm good friends with his daughter, Julie Ziglar. And I had seen one of your videos of you doing the impression of Mr. Ziglar, and that was so funny, but I thought that was really
neat. You probably saw the one where he was on stage where Mr. Ziglar was on stage along with Tom and Mrs. Ziglar. And that was at an event we used to hold a public event we used to hold yearly. And I think it was, and Mrs. Ziegler told me afterwards, it was actually the first time she'd ever been on stage with her husband. So that was a real thrill for me. But here's the thing. Afterwards, the Zieglers stayed around and signed autographs for people. They must have been there for an hour, hour and a half, just signing autographs and having deep conversations with people. I mean, I got to tell you, and we had lots and lots of speakers that weekend, and what everyone seemed to hold of most value was the conversations with the Zieglers. And as nice and as wonderful and as kind and fantastic as Zig was on stage, the Ziegler family is even nicer and sweeter and kinder and more authentic. And it was just such a privilege, to have them there with us.
Right. They are a pretty amazing family. I did get to meet Mr. Ziegler before he passed away, and I still remember him putting his arm around me and asking me if I had ever written a book. And at that time I said no. And he said, "You need to write a book. That'll give you the most, credibility ever in your business." And so I had to take his advice. And since
Who
then,
wouldn't take Zig's advice when he advises something? Sure.
that's right. And so I've written a book. And as you know, it's addictive to write a book. And, your book, the Go Giver book, has just been, it's one of the top business books out there. And just wanted, if you could give us a quick review of the 5 laws and just really how that book came about. I know you're really into giving value, so would just love to hear more about that.
Yeah, and it's a parable. So rather than being a how-to book, which is how all my other books were before the Go Giver series, and all my books have been since the Go Giver series, this one's a parable. So it's a story, and co-authored with John David Mann, who is really the lead writer and storyteller. I'm a how-to author, right? I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. John is a magnificent storyteller and writer, and so it was a great collaboration and so enjoyable. And the 5 laws are based around a central premise, which is usually the case. And the premise is that shifting your focus, and this is really the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some, woo-woo, way out there, magical, mystical kind of reasons. Not at all. It's actually very logical, very rational when you think about it. When you're that person who can take your focus off yourself and place it on making another person's life better through the value you provide to them, through your time, attention, counsel, consistency, and so forth, people feel good about you. They want to get to know you. They begin to like you and love you and trust you and want to be a part of your life, want to do business with you and refer you to others. So again, it's really understanding that it's very logical in terms of the reasons why following this is bound to bring you success. And the 5 laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. And if you'd like, we can do a brief run through of each of them.
Sure, that would be great. I'd like to hear, more about them. I've read up on them, and I've been in business. I've had my own business now for 14 years and in some format of commercial real estate for more than 30 years. But I know taking some of your key in your, different books that I've read has just made such a huge difference.
Well, and just from getting to know you as I have online, it's obvious to me that you do and did a lot of these things very intuitively, long before you read the book. And so, and I think that's the case with a lot of people, because John and I will be the first to say there's nothing new in this book. There are no new principles or laws or what have you. We've simply taken what has already existed since time immemorial. We would say for as long as there have been market economies, and simply systemize them, or put them into a certain a certain methodology, or system, if you will. So the first law, the law of value, simply says that your true worth, in the business sense, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear that, it's a little counterintuitive. Give more in value than I take in payment? Isn't that a recipe for bankruptcy? And what we have to understand is simply the difference between price and value. See, price is a dollar amount. It's a dollar figure. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth to another human being that they will willingly and happily exchange their money for this, and again, be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. Could I give you just a very quick example of such?
Would love that. Definitely. Yes, please do.
Let's say you hire an accountant to do your taxes, and she charges you, we'll just name a round figure, $1,000. That's her fee. Literally, it's her price, $1,000. But what value does she give you in exchange? Well, through her years of experience and hard work, and from her getting to know you, and asking the right questions, and discovering what you're looking to accomplish, getting to learn about your business, she's able to save you $5,000 in taxes. She also saves you countless hours of time, and she provides you and your family with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So she actually gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 fee or price. She gave you more in value than she took in payment. So you feel great about it. She made a very, bless you, she made a very healthy profit, because, again, it was worth it to her to lease out her services, her knowledge, her time, for that amount of money. In fact, in any free market-based exchange, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. They do so on their own volition. In any free market-based exchange, there are always two profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each of them came away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. What's important, though, is to understand that it begins with the focus. See, your accountant was not focused on her fee. She was focused on the immense value she was providing you. The fee was simply the result. This is why we say that money is an echo of value, right? Money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning, meaning nothing more than that the value must be the focus. The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a very natural result of the value you've provided. That's law number one, the law of value in a nutshell. Law number two is the law of compensation. And this one says that your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number one says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number two tells us that the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. In the story, Nicole Martin, the CEO, told Joe, the protege, she explained that law number one, the law of value, represents your potential income, right? But serving just one person, regardless of how well you serve them, is probably not going to make you a sustainably healthy income, right? So law number two is really about the number of lives you're able to impact with that magnificent value. Law number three is the law of influence. This one says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, counterintuitive sounding, right? Counterproductive at best, maybe even Pollyanna-ish at worst. And yet, the greatest leaders, top influencers, most profitable salespeople, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always placing the other person's interests first. Their focus is on the other person. But let me, if I may, also qualify that statement, because it can be very easily misconstrued, and I think this is very important. When we say place the other person's interests first, we certainly don't mean you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It's simply, as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of his new mentors, the golden rule of business, of sales, of networking, right, is simply that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or even quicker way of eliciting those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from what we call an I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win. And that's law number 3. Now, law number 4, the law of authenticity, says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. In this part of the story, Deborah Davenport, a very successful realtor, she explained that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and indeed they are all very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you, as we like to say, show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. After all, they know what they're getting, right? They begin to know you and love you and trust you and want to be in relationship with you and want to do business with you. And so it's so, obviously very good business to be authentic. So we have to ask the question, why then do some people not show up authentically? Why do they instead show up as sort of a, I guess the correct Latin term would be phonus balonus, right? They not as themselves, and we might think, wow, they're dishonest, or they're trying to pull one over on us, or they're, I mean, it's a big world. There are all sorts of people out there, but not usually. It typically, when someone does not show up authentically, it's because they simply don't have the self-confidence to do so. Let's face it, it's very difficult to show up authentically when you don't feel you have authentic value to show up with. Because of this, I think it's very important that we realize our strengths, right? See, I think we all, as human beings, we have 2 types of value. Okay, we have intrinsic value, which is, being a human being. We bring value to the table. But we also have what I call market value. And I define market value as that combination of strengths, traits, talents, and characteristics that allow a person to bring value to the marketplace, value to others, and do so in such a way that they will be financially rewarded for it. Now, we all have our what Mike Littman, I used to hear, call assets of value, right? And, the challenge, though, is that because we're human beings and we're so emotionally close to ourselves, sometimes it's difficult to really recognize those strengths. It's difficult to realize that brilliance or that immense value that we bring to the table. And this is why you have people who really sell themselves short, and they lower their fees unnecessarily, or they don't charge high enough in the first place. They're not able to effectively communicate their value because they don't recognize their own value, which is why it's so important to have someone in your life, whether it's a coach or a mentor or a sales manager or someone who cares about you and cares about your success, yet is not so emotionally involved with you that they also can't see, clearly and objectively. So it's very important to be able to really grab. We have to be aware of our weaknesses as well. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and there are some weaknesses that we can ignore. There are others we need to mitigate, and there are some weaknesses we need to turn into strengths, which, by the way, brings up another point about authenticity, if you don't mind me continuing along that path. Is that okay?
Yes, please do. It's so informative.
Oh, thank you. I think there are people who maybe misconstrue the term authentic as meaning this is how I am, take it or leave it. Which, by the way, is a good philosophy if you don't want to have good friends, solid relationships, or be particularly successful in business. But for most of us, that's not a good plan, so or a good outcome. So no, let's not confuse authenticity with that. This is like the person who says, "Well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to change, that wouldn't be authentic of me," right? And of course, we know that's hogwash. That's malarkey. It simply means this person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to bring themselves to a higher, more effective level of authenticity, right? So we never want to use authenticity as an excuse for not growing. We want to utilize authenticity as a reason to step up our game and continue to improve ourselves and work on ourselves and become that higher version of our authentic self. And then law number 5 is the law of receptivity. And this is really what brings it home. If law number 1, if the law of value is the foundational principle, which I think it is, it all builds off of that. Law number 5, the law of receptivity, is kind of this is where the rubber kind of meets the road, because the law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving, which really means nothing more than that we breathe out and we breathe in. Try to do one without the other. It's very difficult to survive, never mind thrive, right? We breathe out carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving. We breathe in, which is receiving. Contrary to what has become popular belief, because the way the world around us sends us messages about money and prosperity, and so they're not mixed messages. They're very negative messages. I mean, if you watch the news, or you're online, or you talk to people, or in the schools, or what have you, you think that people who've made a lot of money have done it on the backs of others or through some nefarious means, or some. Hey, again, it's a big world. There are people who do things in a way that certainly is not a good way, not one which we would relate to. But no, for most of us who operate out of a free market based, meaning that, again, no one's forced to do business with you. The only way we can earn a very, very healthy income is to serve a lot of people with tremendous value. Because, it's funny, I often will say this when I speak at a sales convention. I'll begin by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Mm-hmm. Right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And that's the only reason anyone should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. So if you are making a lot of money, okay, it's because you're providing immense value to a lot of people. Now, that's not a message we hear from the world. And unfortunately, because often we get these messages from the time we're born, right? Upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, which, my good friend Randy Gage, who's an expert on prosperity and prosperity mindset, he talks about how in most movies, there are always 2 characters portrayed, 2 basic characters. There are the good people, who are generally portrayed as poor and struggling, but happy. They're always poor, but happy, right? But they're always being stepped on, stepped over, stepped around, pushed around by who? The evil rich person, right? who's heartless and has no soul. And, we see this all the time. But these are the messages people get. Now, so let's go back to what we're talking about with the law of receptivity. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts, despite the messages that we hear from so many. Giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. They work together. However, we also know that universal law says the giving has to come first, right? We certainly don't go up to a fireplace and say, "Hey, give me some heat, give me some fire, then I'll throw on some logs and some newspaper and light a match." We don't go up to the bank teller and say, "Hey, if you'll give me an interest payment first, then I'll open an account." No, life doesn't work that way. The giving comes before the receiving. Money is the echo of value. So here's the key. We can know this, right? We can know this. You're not a giver or a receiver. No, you're a giver and a receiver. We can know this logically. But because the world has placed all these horrible money and prosperity messages, it's in our unconscious, and we need to consciously work at a prosperity consciousness. Okay. And so and so many people have told us that, they've written to email John and me and said, law number 5 was the most difficult law. I feel like I was finally given permission to be prosperous. Well, we take that as a great compliment, but it's really too bad that society has done that through not understanding really the beauty of the true free marketplace, which has done more to increase the standard of living throughout the world whenever it's had a chance to operate. Unfortunately, we have a horrible mindset, but it is what it is. And as long as we are willing to seek out the right information, that's why I say buy books on prosperity. Listen to podcasts. Listen to Randy Gage and Ellen Rogan, who's a financial advisor in Chicago who works on money mindset. People like Bob Proctor and David Nagel, they're out there. But let's fill our minds with great prosperity thinking, because the garbage about it just comes to us naturally.
Wow, I just love that. It still amazes me that it's rarely taught in our school systems, and having 2 sons now, 19 and almost 21, talking about money. And, both my husband and I were both in commercial real estate, and talking about, I grew up that money really wasn't talked about, bringing value and all that. And it's great that you're going out there and spreading it and speaking all over the world, and hopefully, really getting this impact of how important it is. And it's great. I know you've written, other books too, but I love the part, I really love the part, on the go-giver part, the authenticity and showing value. Some people have told me that, I give out too much information, and I feel like I can never give out too much information. Being a commercial real estate broker, sometimes working with new clients, their first thing they ask you is about the commission. And I have to go in and share the value that I do bring, because you may, me selling $1 million property to, a new investor that I just sold, my value came in after I've developed more than 50 pad sites when I worked for Brinker International, developing chilies at the time. So I know if you buy that property, it may be $1 million, but it's going to cost you an extra $2 million because the soil is contaminated. You need a detention pond. The electricity is, under 6 lanes and stuff like that. So I can definitely the value. You have to show your value.
Got to be able to communicate your value, and in order to do that, you've got to first, what my good friend Amy Wells says, you've got to be able to walk in your value. So you've got to understand your value, and of course, when we communicate value, not only is it about what we can do or what we do, but it's discovery of the prospective customer or client's needs, wants, and desires, so that we can really tie in the value we provide to their needs, wants, and desires. And once we do that, now that person is sees the value of doing business with us.
That's great. I saw recently that you were posted on Twitter. I think it was yesterday, and I signed up for it. But you actually have a new mini course, which I'm really intrigued about referrals, because a lot of times people forget about going back to their clients that they've already done business with and established and asking for those referrals. I'd love to hear more about your mini course you have and how to get and ask for those referrals.
Yeah, the course, so there's two courses. There's a main course which is called Endless Referrals, the Go Giver Way. And this is the combination of my first book, which was called Endless Referrals, and of course the Go Giver. So it's my entire system for creating a network of endless referrals for your business. And that's the main online course. It's 9.5 hours of how-to information. We also put out a free course that just came out yesterday, finally. And this one is we call it a free mini course, and it's called Selling the Go Giver Way. And so this one just, really what it does is it reframes sales for a whole lot of people, so that they understand that selling is not a necessary evil, it's a necessary good. Okay. And that when you're selling, you're not, so many people, as they think of selling as trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. Well, that's not selling. That's called being a con artist. Selling, by definition, is really nothing more than discovering what that other person needs or wants, desires, and helping them to get it. So that's the first part. Then we also talk about how to answer and work within objections, because so many salespeople are so intimidated by objections. And I think the main reason this is because they've learned how to answer all the standard objections, and they provide these wonderful, wonderful responses, but it's typically to the wrong objection, because most of the time a prospective buyer, the objection they state isn't necessarily the real objection. Now, they're not lying. I'm not talking about that. I mean, if they are lying, that's a whole different issue. No, I'm talking about that they will say the price is too high, or I have to talk it over with so-and-so, or, well, I'd like to do it, but not right now. But really, that's not the objection. The objection is something much deeper. And so you could have a great standard answer to your price is too high, it's not in the budget, I have to talk it over with my so-and-so, or you can give the perfect answer to the wrong objection. And that's why it's so frustrating and so disheartening. So we talk about how to actually work within the objection, right? You can't overcome an objection. What you can do is you can work within it in order to help your prospective customer understand, and you understand, the true objection, and then together work through it in order to advance the sale. And we talk about closing the sale that so many people think has to be so difficult and so confrontational. And so, no, if you do everything else correctly, the close is simply a very natural part of the process. So we really, in the free course, we make understanding that we prioritize that, so that people are just not intimidated about selling, but are able to look at it as something fun and worthwhile and fulfilling.
I can't believe how fast time, we could sit here all day and talk and listen to you. I don't know if you have a few more minutes.
Oh, of course. For you, I have lots of more minutes.
Oh, thanks, Bob. I wanted to, the new kind of buzzword is influencer, and a lot of people see stars become an influencer, brand ambassadors. And what do you recommend? I mean, how do you get to that point of being an influencer if you had a few steps that you need to take to get your brand out there? Because let's just say, for myself in commercial real estate, you hear that, and there's thousands of us, and I specialize in single tenant net lease deals, Walgreens, McDonald's, the single, and trying to find that niche. But to become an influencer if you're an accountant, real estate, how do you, separate yourself different?
I think we begin with looking at what influence really is and what it means. And we can look at it on two levels, one very surface, and then take it out a little deeper. On a very, very basic level, influence is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. That's, by definition, that's influence. That's its definition, but that's not its substance or its essence, right? The essence of influence is pull. Pull as opposed to push, as in the old saying, how far can you push a rope? And we know the answer is not very, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers don't push. You never hear someone say, wow, that David or that Mary, she is so influential. She has a lot of push with people. She sure is pushy. Wow, we'll just follow her anywhere. Wow. No, she's very influential. She has a lot of pull with people because that's what influence is. It's pull, it's an attraction. Great influencers attract people first to themselves and only then to their ideas. So how does this pull manifest itself? How do we pull, whether we're leading a team of people or leading one person through the sales process or whatever we're doing? Well, the people we call genuine influencers seem to understand on both a head level and a heart level. They understand what I believe was Dale Carnegie's underlying premise in his classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this is where he wrote that ultimately people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. And because of this, the genuine influencer, the effective influencer, constantly asks themselves questions to make sure they're pointing in the right direction, which is outward. Remember, your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Law number 3 from the Go-Giver. So they ask them, how does what I'm asking this other person to do, how does it align with their goals? How does it align with their needs, wants, desires? How does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with their values? How does it help solve some of their problems? How does it make their life better? How does it bring them closer to happiness or fulfillment? However, when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human being into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment, as opposed to trying to use some type of compliance, manipulation or bullying or lying or or ordering or what have you, which is at best temporarily. It's totally unsustainable, and at worst it will just have people sabotaging the process anyway. So in fact, my one of my great friends and mentors, her name is Dondi Scumaci from San Antonio, Texas, just a wonderful person, so wise. She says, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to influence, compliance will never take you where commitment can go. And this is why I think the greatest leaders, the top salespeople, they understand that leadership, they understand that sales, they understand that influence is never about them. It's always about the other person. It's about that person whose life you choose to touch with the value you provide. That's influence.
Yeah, that's great information. I've had some great mentors in my 30 plus years in business too, and it really makes a difference. And I've been, listening to your podcast too, and knowing certain words, make a difference too, of when you're selling and trying to get your influence across. And it's just really comes down to having that connection with people and just building. It still comes down to building relationships, as you know, how important that is with people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We talked about earlier about, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, not those computers. And people say, well, what about social media? Can you create great relationships on social media? Absolutely. As long as you remember that it's not the computers or social media platforms they know, like, and trust, but the people in front of those computers, right? And as so what do I tweet? What do I post? What do I put on LinkedIn? Well, you simply do like you would do whenever you're with someone in person. You'd ask yourself before you hit the send button, you say, is what I'm about to transmit, is it of value or not? And if it isn't, don't hit send.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know I post on LinkedIn. I have, more than the 30,000 that you can get now, which it's great.
I know you have a huge following on LinkedIn.
It's a resource that a lot of people have not really engaged in and used, and it's amazing the business opportunities that you're able to get from LinkedIn. But just like you said, providing value to people out there so they know, if they do want to hire you, how you can definitely help them. I wanted just to put up here all the, books that you've written. If we could put the books up there and then look at all the different go-givers. I'm reading the one on selling now,
Oh,
which is really good. Wanted to find out what's your next book you plan on writing. Is there one in the works?
no, it has taken so long to get these videos out. That's been what Kathy, my business partner, and I have been calling the never-ending project. Because it's taken so long. And God bless her. She has done an amazing job, which she always does anyway. We've been partners for, gosh, I don't know, 12 years or so. And she's the one that makes the business work. But what a job she has done in walking this thing through and having it happen. So I'm very lucky. I have really great people in my life. Kathy's my business partner. Of course, John is my co-author, and John, again, he's the lead writer. He's the real, he's the storyteller. And actually, he and his wife Anna are going to write a separate book in the Go Giver series. They're going to co-author, called The Go Giver Marriage. And they have a wonderful marriage, and they're both such great people. And so I got to read a sort of a rough draft of it. It's really good. So looking forward to that coming. So I guess there is another book coming out in the Go Giver series, but it will be co-authored by John and Anna.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, definitely have to pick up that. I see all those books, behind you. How many books do you read?
It's funny because this is one small part of my home library, and I always say to people, my house is basically comprised of books with some scattered furniture. So yeah, I'm a book person. Just love them.
That's good. And I know you're a big animal lover, and our boys want me to get a dog while they're back in college. And so I've been researching. I have not had my own pet since childhood. And so we'll have to talk.
Please get one from a shelter if you do get one. They are the most loving, wonderful, appreciative, loyal. I mean, all dogs are wonderful and loyal and everything, but a shelter dog, boy, they just seem to know they've been rescued.
I know. I can see, because I'm looking, being during this COVID time, looking out my office window at home, and I just see all these people walking their dogs. I'm like, this is a sign I need to get a dog. So definitely we'll check out the shelters.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And then anything else? How can we reach out? I follow almost every morning on my walks. I listen to so many of your YouTube videos, and I know you have your podcast. So where can people reach you?
Probably the best place is just to go to Burg, which is BURG.com. And they can scroll down and they can subscribe to the blog if they'd like, which is usually more videos, as you were saying, than written now. I just do a lot of videos. They can also check out any of the books that you were kind enough to display. They can get a free chapter or excerpt and then decide if they'd like to click through or not. Also, I would advise doing the free mini course, which is just, they can either get at thegogiver.com slash selling, or we should have it as a pop-up at Burg.com really soon. And I know pop-ups are kind of annoying, but we've got so many people trying to find the thing that it's just easier to get it, to get it to them that way if they'd like. So, but yeah, come to the site and have some fun, look around.
Definitely. Thank you, Bob, so much for sharing all of your value. I'm a big fan of yours and your books and have learned so much. And I did the Go Giver book. Barbara asked me to read it and gave it to me. And now I'm giving it, to people, business owners too, that I know it will bring value to. So it's just a great series of books, and want to share it down to even my boys and the generation. And so
Well, that's the nicest compliment that we can ever receive. When a parent says they want to share it with their kids, that beats everything else. We love hearing about the companies and the organizations and all the, and love that. But boy, when we hear a parent say that, they've either used the book as a family study, or that they give it to their high school or their college age kids, there's just no greater compliment than that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. So thank you.
And thank you for sharing with me about Barbara recommending it to you. My goodness, one of my business heroes recommending the book. And I think I had told you on the Twitter, because I think you tweeted it. It was either on LinkedIn or Twitter. I think it was on Twitter, maybe.
Right.
I didn't even know she knew about the book. So that was a nice thing to read.
Well, you're very welcome. And thank you for taking, I know you're busy, but so thank you so much for taking time out today to share this, and have a great day. You're in Florida, correct? Jupiter?
Yep, absolutely. And it is sunny and warm, so it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Same temperatures here in Dallas. So thanks a lot, Bob. Have a great day.